This video is made possible by the Great Courses Plus, an on-demand video learning service. Learn at your own pace, with no tests or schedules. Check out a free trial from the Great Courses through the link in the description below. More about them in a bit. A lot of career politicians seem to have fairly boring backstories, at least as most of us can recall off the top of our heads. The problem is if someone's been in politics for 40 years, then what you know them for is politics. But not every world leader has followed the same path. Donald Trump is best known as a real estate magnate and TV personality, for instance. And there's a lot of other world leaders who have some amazing backstories for their rise to power. Let's take a look at 10 of the most interesting. Number 10. Queen Elizabeth II is a trained truck mechanic. Back in 1945, Queen Elizabeth II was an 18-year-old woman who felt like she needed to serve her country. She joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service as a subaltern, which is an officer in the British Army. As a subaltern, she trained as a truck mechanic and driver. Obviously, her progress was well documented because, she was a princess, so, there are photos of her doing all sorts of stuff like changing spark plugs. In part, the Queen Mother was responsible for all of this. In 1939, as the war began, the Queen Mother refused to flee despite urging from others. She stayed at the palace with her daughters to wait out the war, even despite the bombings. When Elizabeth turned 18, she wanted to live up to her mother's stalwart example and signed up for military service. By the end of her service, she had earned the rank of junior commander. Number 9. President Xi Jinping of China lived in a cave for 7 years. Xi Jinping runs one of the world's most powerful nations, but his beginnings were inauspicious at best. In his early life, Jinping's father was a well-off government official, and the family was well known. During the Cultural Revolution of Mao Zedong, Xi's sister was killed during a raid of their home, and his father was literally paraded through town as an enemy of the state. Xi himself, only 15 at the time, was sent to a place called Liangjie. In this rural community, Xi had to work the fields and took up residence in what's been described as a flea-infested cave. For 7 years, he lived there as a punishment of sorts for being an affluent, educated youth of the ruling class. One time he escaped and went back home, but his mother turned him in and sent him back to finish his time, and he had 6 months of re-education. She credits a lot of his political leanings to ideas he formed while living in his cave. The entire story is part of the government's efforts to present Xi as a relatable everyman, so, some details might be a little bit suspicious, but it does seem that a lot of what transpired is fact. Number 8. Lula da Silva found a bag of money. Former president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, was one of the most popular politicians in Brazil's history and also one of the most popular in the world, having made it onto People's 100 Most Influential People in the World list. As a child, Lula was extremely poor. The 7th of 8 children, it said he lived in a dirt floor hut for the first few years of his life. By the age of 7, he was selling peanuts on the streets of Sao Paulo to help make ends meet for his family. After leaving his alcoholic father, who apparently had a second family, Lula's mother took the family to a single room behind a bar, and that's when things got weird. According to at least one biography, it was while living in this home that one of Lula's brothers found a bag of cash. The sack of mystery cash was apparently more than what the average laborer would have made in 3 years. The money allowed his mother to move the family to an industrial suburb where he was able to learn to read and write and actually get a job that led him on his path to political office. Number 7. Aussie PM Bob Hawke was a world champion beer drinker. Having a world leader that is also a world record holder has to be cool and something to be proud of. What's more impressive is when your leader holds a world record for beer drinking. Former Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke claims the world record for downing a yard of beer. If you don't drink beer by length, a yard of beer is about 1.4 litres. Hawke drank it in 11 seconds, claiming a pretty impressive world record. Hawke took the record in 1954, back when he was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University. Rhodes Scholars tend to have a bit of a reputation for being bookish and nerdy, so it's nice to see that Hawke was balancing his education with having fun at the same time. Number 6. Napoleon wrote a romance novel. For those of us in the modern era, Napoleon is known as the short-statured French general who went on to become emperor and lost at Waterloo. While his actual height may not have been as goofy as history has made it out to be, and he was a skilled military tactician, he was also apparently quite the romantic, so much so that he literally did write a romance novel. If you study the history of Napoleon, you know that he was very much in love with a woman named Josephine. Some of his love letters were published in modern times, and they reveal this side of Napoleon Napoleon that was a mix of romantic and stunningly vulgar. We like to think of history as being rather sanitary when it comes to such things, but Napoleon was a straight-up freak. That said, he was into traditional romance as well. He wrote a novella entitled Clisson and Eugenie. It was 17 pages of text, and some versions of it included an additional 60 pages of commentary. And just before we get into the top 5 today, let me take a moment to tell you about today's fantastic sponsor, the Great Courses Plus. You can learn from the world's best professors on the Great Courses Plus. Now, if you're enjoying this video, well, they've got tons of courses all about history's greatest leaders, and of course, how they got there, and of course, also just the infamous leaders that no one likes. So, if you'd like to do a really deep dive on some of history's most influential people with vast backstories of their own, definitely go search it out. If you go to the Great Courses Plus and enter, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln, you'll come up with a ton of stuff, classes, lectures, everything you could ever want to know. It's great. Basically, the Great Courses Plus is like a university education, but it's at your own pace. There are no tests, there are no schedules, and it's incredibly easy to access. PC, phone, tablet, however you like. Also, you can just listen. You don't have to watch the video. You just turn it off and audio stream only, which is of course fantastic. So it's great stuff, and you can try it for free. What? Just go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/TopTenz or use the link in the description below. And let's get back to today's video. Number 5. Pope Francis was a nightclub bouncer. In Catholic belief, the task of shepherding the Catholic faith was in the hands of the apostles under the leadership of St. Peter. The successor to these spiritual shepherds were the bishops of Rome, which we call popes. So the Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church and generally embodies what we've come to expect of the Catholic faith, being someone who follows the teachings of Christ. In stark contrast to what you might expect, the current Pope, Francis, was once a bouncer at a nightclub. In all fairness, people come to their faith at different times and in different ways, and even the Pope is human, so he has a very human past. It's just kind of funny to think that this man who is the leader of the world's largest religion is probably someone who had to punch out a few drunks back in the day. Number 4. Indian Prime Minister Modi was secretly married. Every once in a while, you'll come across a story about a man who has a secret family other people don't know about. He lives an entire double life somehow, with one half never really figuring out what the other half is doing. It sounds extremely complicated and also hard to believe sometimes because of all the effort that has to go into something like this. Now imagine the complication of being a world leader and pulling this off at the same time. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi had kept a wife in secret for 50 years. Modi made the admission of having a secret wife when he was running for Prime Minister in 2014. He had been married since he was 18, and no one knew about it. In fact, it only came to light when he was filling out paperwork to run for office and had to declare assets. This was certainly no oversight on Modi's part. He had actively denied being married and even used the fact that he was single as a point to support the idea that he was an ideal politician. By way of explaining this, it seemed that Modi had gone to travel to the Himalayas after being married for about 3 years and had simply never gone back home again. So it wasn't like he was living with his wife and enjoying family life, but he also never officially got separated or divorced either. Number 3. Vladimir Putin has black belts in judo and karate. If any world leader were to have a black belt in both judo and karate, it seems that Vladimir Putin would be the likeliest choice. This is the man who is well known for taking photographs with tigers and riding horses around the countryside without a shirt on. There's a reason he clicked so well with Steven Seagal. Putin has even released an instructional DVD that teaches other people how to do judo, which is called Let's Learn Judo with Vladimir Putin. The video features Putin beating off a variety of opponents, intercut with sequences in which the president explains the history of judo and some of its philosophy. Reviews of the DVD are not as bad as you might think, with some praise being given to the fact that Putin clearly is a fan of the discipline. On the other hand, there's actually very little judo instruction on the DVD, which does kind of make the name a bit of a letdown. Number 2. Liberia's George Weah is a world-class soccer player. Before George Weah became president of Liberia, he had spent some years playing for their soccer team. Weah made his debut on the Liberian national team back in 1987, and over his career he played in 53 games and scored 13 goals. He was FIFA Player of the Year in 1995 and has been called the best soccer player in the world. Interestingly, his son Timothy plays for the US national team. In 1996, Weah was banned for 6 games after punching a Portuguese player in the nose. According to Weah, Jorge Costa had been slinging racist insults at him all day. His frustration got the better of him, and Weah punched the man in the face. The Portuguese team denied the allegations, and there were no witnesses to corroborate Weah's side of the story, so he was banned for 6 games. Despite that, he still won the FIFA FIFA Fair Play Award in 1996. As for Costa, he ended up missing 3 weeks of play because he needed facial reconstruction surgery. Oh my god. That must have been a hell of a punch. Number 1, Prince Philip is a god. Prince Philip was born into the Greek and Danish royal families back in 1921. As the Duke of Edinburgh, he's married to the Queen of England, and you'd think that that'd be about as high a profile as any human could ever hope to achieve in life. You'd be mistaken though. Not only is Prince Philip one of the most high-profile leaders in the world, he's also achieved godhood. On the tiny island of Tanna near Vanuatu, the people there worship Prince Philip as the son of a mountain god. They had the belief that a light-skinned being had sailed away from their islands long ago to marry a woman of great power. He would later return to them and bring lots of good times with him. When people on the island saw how Queen Elizabeth commanded respect and deference from others back in the 50s or so, they concluded that her husband must be the man their beliefs foretold. From then on, they started constructing mythology around Prince Philip, which attributed pretty much everything good in the world to his influence. According to their beliefs, even Barack Obama becoming president of the United States was influenced by the greatness of Prince Philip. Philip has never actually been to Tanna, but they believe when he does show up that sickness and death will vanish and that rules against adultery will be abolished and you'll be free to love whoever you want. Well, that's weird. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, smash that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to support the Great Courses Plus by signing up for free. There's a link below, and thank you for watching.